Hey, well, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Collision Live. It's Daniel here again, and there's no one I'd rather be at the desk with. As always, Mr. Sam Camp.
Oh, stop it!
How you doing?
I'm doing well. It was a good week. I had a pesky dog bite me on my jog over the weekend. So actually, it was Thursday, but other than that, it was a really good weekend.
Was
So
it like
it wasn't too dangerous.
a big dog, or is this a?
It wasn't like a huge dog, but it was a biting kind, and it was big enough to catch me while running and be unkind.
Yeah, well, I guess the moral of the story is run faster.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on it.
So we have a lot to talk about this week. Kind of some interesting discussions that I don't know necessarily. There's I have mixed feelings on, so we haven't talked about this ahead of time, so we'll see where we go with this. But again, we both grew up in pretty kind of conservative Christian homes. I don't know what the Disney as an organization, as a business. We grew up watching the classics. I don't know if you.
Yeah, we did. We
a
did.
healthy dose of Disney films.
I would say that Robin Hood is probably the best one of the pack.
Yeah, I know people say that art's subjective, but I think objectively we can agree that the cartoon Robin Hood is the greatest Disney movie ever made.
That's true.
The cartoon Mulan is it pushes that,
nipping at the heels.
It's on the Mount Rushmore, but it's not quite there. But again, Disney is, especially if you guys have grown up in a kind of Christian circles, especially more conservative Christian circles. People talk about Disney. There's sort of the stigma, and again, a lot of it justified, well-earned. Is this sort of this, very, kind of ungodly, this force that's, trying to destroy our culture and push all these very kind of liberal, secular ideologies. And even here on the channel, whenever we do like a movie review for a Disney movie, a lot of times in the comments we get into some, I think most of the good discussions, but there is this sort of the sense that Disney.
I refer you to our Frozen 2
yeah,
movie review.
Definitely the most engagement we've had at Frozen 2. Again, some of that has been really good comments too. Some of it not so much. But again, Disney is in the news again, kind of making for kind of more ideological reasons, not necessarily just movies. So Disney Plus, we're both your subscriber, right? To Disney Plus.
Looking forward to October 31st.
Mandalorian
season 2 coming up. So
yeah, if you guys are watching this live, there's the new trailer drops tonight during Monday Night Football. So we will be watching that. But so Disney Plus, they just announced this, on their platform, all these classic Disney movies. That there's a new disclaimer that's going to be playing before kind of select movies. And here's what this thing shows up. It's off the top of my head, like Aristocats, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Swiss Family Robinson, which isn't a cartoon. So several of these kind of old classic movies. This disclaimer pops up, and it lasts for about 10 seconds on your screen before the movie starts. And it just says this: this program includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of people or cultures. These stereotypes were wrong then and are wrong now. Rather than remove this content, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together. Disney is committed to creating stories with inspirational and aspirational themes that reflect the rich diversity of human experience around the globe. To learn more about how these stories have impacted society, please visit www.disney.com/storiesmatter. And again, I encourage you to check out that website if you're interested. There's a lot more information about kind of what these things are. But again, this is sort of an ongoing discussion, because if you remember Gone with the Wind, there was a bunch of backlash with that, and it was removed from a bunch of platforms kind of online. Several kind of popular TV shows have yanked certain episodes from their kind of housed online. And it's sort of this, as the kind of the entertainment culture wrestles with the fact that,
they have
decades ago, they didn't think from a 2020 kind of mindset.
They didn't see it coming.
Yeah. So again, this is an interesting thing to kind of grapple with, as far as what is the right approach to this? How do we, obviously, time moves forward, unless you're watching Tenet. Time's always moving forward. So, the things that we believe even today, if history is any indication, a couple of decades from now, people are going to be looking at some of the things that we maybe said and kind of challenging it. So what do you think
Yeah.
about it? Is this, just off the top of your head, I guess, is this a helpful, and I guess to be clear too, that that disclaimer shows up on the screen before you watch the movie, but also in like the details of each movie, which I don't know if anyone really clicks through. You can click, and then each movie has a breakdown of what the kind of what they're talking about. This is specifics to that movie of what the like in the cartoon Peter Pan, the depiction of Native Indians and the way that some of the racist terms and some of that stuff. So you can find more about it. So it's kind of an educational thing. At least that's what they're going for. What are your thoughts with this?
Well, there's a lot of thoughts to think about it. I guess one would be, what films, we've talked about a couple, but where do you draw the line there? And I would be curious to see, and I haven't read any of the additional content from Disney, but at what point do you not have a disclaimer? What types of movies don't have disclaimers? Now, is it just real overt, like is there racism in some of these old films? And that's sort of, it sounds like what they're kind of highlighting. And then what part of it, I think it seems a little demeaning to the viewer to say, to put a disclaimer like that, because it's like, we feel that maybe you watching this don't get it. Or, we need to tell you how to think about this film. And so to me, I'm always a little reticent about disclaimers like that. And it's just like, well, let us just, so it's a lot of backside covering, perhaps, that's taking place, rather than actual conversations about issues that these films perhaps raise. And I also think that, you could probably look at some of these old cartoons and they were, not good, for sure. And so I think that is there, but how much does the company that produces those films need, like, it's kind of a weird way to address it, I think. And so it's like, so how much do they need to, like, give their input into this, and how much just let the conversation happen and not on your platform? I don't know.
Yeah, because that's sort of where like you were saying, we were, we both have young kids. I have two 5-year-old boys, and we were not long ago, since we got the Disney Plus, kind of introducing them to a lot of the classic Disney movies and some of these. And you're right, some of the stuff in these movies, we were watching not that long ago, the cartoon Peter Pan, and that scene with the Native Americans, it is racist. It is.
Yeah.
You kind of forget, especially if you kind of grew up with it. You're like, oh, it's fine. We turned out fine, which apparently that's debatable if you look at our culture right now.
Did we turn out fine?
But I think some of these movies, like these Disney ones, because they're somewhat timeless. As far as like watchability, people are still watching them the same way they're not watching other movies from that time period. I think there is value in kind of making it clear, kind of raising these, recognizing without kind of erasing it, saying these are a product of their time. Here's sort of a way to educate. The place where I kind of fall, that I think is somewhat kind of the bigger issue, is I'm actually, and I haven't thought, they just announced these disclaimers, so I haven't thought too deep into it, but I'm somewhat okay with it for these movies. I think there are some kind of problematic areas in these movies. It's sort of like you were alluding to, but where does this go? Because I think the people that are kind of responsible for the disclaimer, again, it's for Disney movies, but it's sort of a third-party committee of a bunch of different societies that I was looking into on that website, The Stories Matter. You can go to the bottom and see exactly who they are. And again, these ones are all dealing with kind of racial stuff, which is very timely for today. But then, there's GLAAD is on the committee, the LGBTQ rights. There is a religious one, it's more of a broad religious tolerance, is on there. There is a lot of stuff on there, and that's sort of where I get a little icky, because I think these are clear, hey, we should be kids should be aware, people should be aware that these are, you know, the cultures that they're reflecting are bothered by this. But it's sort of how far does this go? Because
Yeah.
will we eventually reach a point where just like a man married to a wife and a family, like, is that going to be somehow offensive to the gay community? Is there is different religious things? It's just sort of once you start down this, we have to
Yeah.
reevaluate kind of past depictions of things, going by the current this moment standards. Um, it worries me a little bit because it's
Yeah, and I think it should worry people, you know, and not to be alarmist or anything. And I brush a lot of things off. That people are like, oh, this is the end of whatever, or these folks are never gonna come back from this. It's like, well, okay, like, I mean, like, let's just take a breath and think about it for a second. But you can see there is a trend towards there is some body, some group that says, these are the moral and just things to do, and this is the moral standard with which we're judging this. And I think as most thinking people would say, well, so based on what are you sort of the moral arbiters of our viewing decisions, or our viewing options, like, to decide that this is good or this is bad. And it's and I guess you could kind of tie it back to some of the controversy with the Oscars and setting up parameters that have to meet certain social criteria to be considered for Best Picture in the year 2024. Well, okay, like, you could say we're probably going to be there anyways. Like, some of this stuff isn't that hard to check the box, and then part of it is you're just going to be checking the box just and going on anyways. But I think you just, when you start injecting so much of the politics into everyday life, and it's like, so we can't even watch a movie now without being told, well, this is whatever. It's like, okay, like, that's like, can we be entertained?
yeah, that's kind
Now,
of
and it's not to say that it's like, well, I just want more racist movies. Like, no, like, nobody's saying that, but it's also like, there's this condescension that comes along with that, to say, well, we here at Disney, we know best for you, and so
yeah,
today it's this, tomorrow, who knows?
yeah, because even I think they had toyed with a similar kind of disclaimer thing a couple months ago, and then they've kind of updated it. People didn't feel like it was clear enough, overt enough. And again, I got my PhD in aesthetics. I'm a kind of art. It's kind of the philosophy of art, and there is something that grates me a little bit about, like, telling from the start. Okay, before you watch this is how you should think about it, how you should engage with it. Even if I think I agree with, at least in these cases, I agree with what they're
Right.
they're saying. It's just that opens a door for more. Again, if our older movie or shows and things with a stay-at-home mom, is that going to get to a point where that's offensive to kind of the feminist movement, and that depicts a reality that's not. And it might seem crazy, but again, we're not going to get into politics.
Here,
but like,
here we are in 2020. So,
like the dictionary is on the fly being changed this the other day, kind of more political in it. So it seems crazy, but I think it is something definitely to keep our eye open for. But again, we like the reality is most of us are going to skip over these things anyways, the same we do with opening credits. But again, it's something. It is a new path, and I think a new thing to
well,
be
and
aware of.
I think the broader context in my mind about this, and the way that I think about it is, politics are now sort of infused in almost every area of life, and I think that's a great tragedy. Like, I don't think politics need to be a part of, like, every part of your life, and so I think this is just one other example of how you're going to start to see more of that. And we already are seeing a lot of that, but it's just it's too bad that politics are now sort of infused in everything. Like
Yeah,
there is no escape.
I ranted to you the other day about the kind of the whole. This is the expression that all art is political, which is nonsense. I think you could say that politics is always capitalized on art, and that's a reality. But all
Yeah.
art is not political, nor need it be political. But again, we're seeing that line is very much becoming inseparable. Where anything that's kind of artistic, movies, shows, music, almost has to be in some way political these days. Well, speaking of politics, this is we're not going to get into politics very much, but I don't know if you're aware that our current president of the United States has a Twitter account.
I've heard mention of it.
And
Yep.
from time to time, when he has a thought to share, he uses
shares
this
it.
Twitter account, and he tweeted something. Again, we're not going. This is not. We're not getting into politics here, but he tweeted the other day, which was quite humorous, an article by the Babylon Bee, talking about the shutting down the internet, and saying this is an outrage. And again, if you guys aren't familiar with the Babylon Bee, it's basically the kind of conservative Christian version of The Onion. It's a satire site. This was a satire article. I think he did delete the tweet, I guess, when he became aware that this is not reality. But
awkward.
Yeah, awkward. I guess think before you tweet.
It's the moral of the story.
Yeah, but again, it's interesting because the Babylon Bee, because of that tweet, kind of it was trending on Twitter, and it was people were talking about what this site is, and it's sort of has raised it to almost another level. But it's been killing it for a while.
Yeah, there's been a lot,
satire.
lots of great content if you're the Babylon Bee or the Onion.
Yeah, this is say what you want about a lot of things going on in culture. This is prime time for some of these satire and comedy sites. And it sort of got me thinking, as far as as Christians, we don't really think about comedy as sort of an important area that we should be involved with. I know, even again, we keep talking about our podcast coming. Even as we were sketching out kind of some episodes, like movies, TV shows, music. We kind of forget about comedy. That's even an area that Christians should talk about. I know when I was doing my PhD, somehow Christian comedians came up, and I had one professor that just couldn't get over that there was such a thing as Christian comedians. Like, how is that at all consistent with the faith? And I think even if you don't take that strong of a view of it, we don't think about it.
Yeah.
But why do you think now kind of comedy is exploding? And I think even kind of the more Christian side of it they've been killing it.
Yeah.
And also, what do you think the role of that is? What is the power of comedy in times like this?
Well, I think, and I forget who said this, but I think like comedy is dangerous again, and so comedians, I think, have a more prominent role in society again. I think there was a time where it was like, everything was wide open and you could say and get away with anything, and like it's like, hey, it's comedy, man. Like, just relax. Like, don't get all offended. Well, now you can get offended at the drop of a hat, and so there are places in comedy where you can go that you're saying things that maybe a lot of people are thinking, but no, like everyone's too afraid to say. And so comedians have that role, just sort of as a society to say the things that everybody's thinking and do it in a very funny and humorous way. And I think, obviously, a life that doesn't laugh often is not a great life. So I think just the, catharsis and laughter, just the joy that can come from just being humored. I think we need that now more than ever, because there are so many serious things that have to be talked about in our society. And so I think there is a great role for humor and for comedy, so you can just laugh throughout your day. I think if you scroll through Twitter, there's enough to be outraged about that I think it's a really good idea to laugh about things. And I think specifically for Christians, it helps us not take ourselves too seriously. And I think you can get into this sort of Christianese bubble and be outraged about all the attacks from the world and all the churches that aren't taking it more seriously or whatever. And so I think comedy is this great, I think, mirror to society, whether that be society at large or your Christian society, and saying, okay, it's kind of funny how you do this. And I think there's been some great Christian comedians who hold a mirror up to the church and say, like, that it's kind of ridiculous the way that you do these things. And so I think it just helps. It helps people just think about their lives in a totally different way, and not and be less offended because there's a joke in it.
Yeah, and I think people, um, because it's funny, because it's sort of less violent, I guess. I think there is definitely very violent and aggressive, not funny comedy out there as well. But it's almost you can almost draw like a parallel to, like, I'm a big fantasy literature buff, and part of why I love that genre is it you can kind of deal with these real world ethical and kind of human issues in a way that's, I don't want to say safe, but it's different. It kind of puts you in a different
Right.
context and
You
lets
had
you.
and you had a tweet about that the other day, didn't you? About how something about fantasy actually prepares you for life. Was
Yeah,
that?
I think
Anyways,
I was quoting someone,
yeah,
but
you were quoting. I forget who it was,
maybe
but
maybe it's C.S. Lewis, but um, and I think comedy does kind of the same thing, where it deals with kind of the same issues that were real life. At least good comedy does.
yeah,
It deals with these issues, but it does it in a way that kind of gives you a different perspective on them. And I think a site like the Babylon Bee is doing so well because it does point out some of the ridiculous stuff.
yeah,
As Christians, things are like, yeah, that's it kind of hurts. That's true.
yeah,
And I think even just politically, it kind of just puts a different spin on it. Again, that can be dangerous. I think a lot of these like late night talk show comedians and stuff, it can be a powerful tool for kind of shaping cultural narratives and stuff. But yeah, there is power in comedy, and
definitely.
I think even just I don't really know necessarily how it's started, but it seems like Christians are stepping up more. Even the Babylon Bee was there's an article in the New York Times. They featured them. I forget who it was. Some very not Christian Hollywood elite kind of made a comment the other day about how kind of conservatives and Christians are just sort of awakening to comedy and starting to put more and more out. Um, and I think it's true. I think it's healthy, and it's not just kind of diverting entertainment, but it actually I think it's always healthy when you can look at the world from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Kind
Well,
of,
it takes you out of sort of your own bubble, and I think it helps reframe stuff that you see all the time. And I think some of the best comics are the observational type comics who will just talk about something that everybody experiences and just show the absurdity of it. And you're just like, oh, like that's like why have I never thought of that before? Like that's hysterical. And so it helps you sort of see the world from a different perspective and hopefully lighten up along the way. And I think there's great material out there, especially for Christians, to be uh, comedic about.
yeah, maybe if you guys are watching, let us know if you guys have any kind of favorite comedians, comics. Again, doesn't not necessarily have to be a Christian, just someone that's out there. I know we're both big Brian Regan fans.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let us know. Is there anyone that you just enjoy their content, helps you kind of see things in a new way, while also just making you laugh? I think we need more laughter.
More laughter is good.
Yeah, especially now. So this week at the Collision, a couple of things. Thank you guys for if you're watching this on Facebook. You guys just helped. We crossed 2,000 likes. We were over that on followers. So yeah, thank you guys. We've been this page and this channel has been growing a lot. So we're excited to continue growing. We got big plans. But thanks for you guys that are
Yeah.
new to the channel.
And tell your friends.
Yeah, and tell your friends. And also thanks for you guys who've been joining us from the start as we kind of
Definitely.
just launched this thing, and it continues to grow. Keep your eye open. We're going to be dropping. They're actually stuff we did last year, but they're relevant again as spooky season is coming.
Oh yeah.
Halloween. Again, it's an important kind of a controversial holiday. It's going to look very different this year.
It's very controversial now because I think like the mayor of LA canceled it. So
Yeah, I'm not sure if trick or treating is going to be happening, but either way, there's a lot to think about with Halloween. I know there's very strong opinions, so we're going to kind of walking through that with some articles and videos about, what should Christians' posture and response be to Halloween? Is it evil? Is it redeemable? Is it indifferent? So we'll get into that. So again, if you have questions on that, keep your eye open for that. What about this? What have you noticed in culture this week?
well, a couple things. One is a documentary on Netflix. It's David Attenborough's life and sort of his maybe his magnum opus. Just sort of kind of he's encapsulating what he's done his whole life, and It's David Attenborough, so just go watch it. Like you could listen to that guy read the dictionary, and it would be good. And so that was something that I really enjoy. I haven't finished it yet, but Carrie and I started watching that. But maybe a question I would pose to you, and something that I saw. It seems every election, a big election at least, and again, not to get into the politics, but to say that there tends to be this great push from artists to create political art. And a great example of this, if you haven't seen it, is I think it's Demi Lovato released a song basically like calling out the president and like essentially saying like, how come you're not dead yet? Which seems a bit brutal. And one, I found the music itself very bad. Like it just wasn't a good
You're
song.
saying you're not a Demi Lovato. She doesn't feature on your running playlist, or
No, I don't know any of her songs, but it just wasn't a good song. So it wasn't, I would say, objectively bad art. But two, just this idea of art stumping for politics. And so maybe just a question I'd give to you is, what is that relationship? And maybe this will be a question that we do in the aforementioned podcast that comes out eventually. But what is that, and why is there always this this play of artists doing things for political reasons?
yeah. And again, if you guys if you guys haven't seen it, we did an article a while ago. It's also in our Collision Volume 1, which you can, I don't know, this book
Over there.
It features in there as well, called When Celebrities Preach, which kind of walks through it in more detail. But you're right, there's, anytime there's any kind of political big event, whether it's an election or it's kind of smaller scale, you kind of have this army of
artists,
artists, and either just
Well, and I would say
using their platform to speak, or else using their artistic skill. And again, I tend to come down to, I'm of two minds on this. I think, some of the, just stick to music or whatever. I think as humans, as citizens, they have every right to talk about what they want to talk about, just as we do. I don't necessarily, I don't think it's fair necessarily that just because they're good at one thing, they can't speak about something else. But at the same time, there is the question of who cares?
Well, and so I guess I would separate like using your platform, like if you're a famous singer, songwriter, or actor, or director, or whatever, using your platform to speak about the things you care about. I think that's perfectly fine. Like, more power to you. But I think like to create bad art and like to celebrate that, I don't know. I just found it this in particular. I just found it really cringy. Like it was just sort of like, this is obviously like sort of manufactured by a political party to like, so I don't know. It was just really bizarre to me.
Yeah, and again, I think even in her song, she in some of the comments and stuff, interaction. Again, I don't know much about Demi Lovato. I don't have any grudge against her, but she kind of had mentioned, I don't care if I lose my career on this. I'm just willing to. And like the reality is that her entire industry
agrees with that
politically.
Yeah. Like there's no way she's going to lose her career because like that was not a risky
it's
thing
not,
to do.
That's like a, Southern Baptist preacher saying, Jesus is Lord, from his pulpit. It's about as risky and brave as, it's different when you're speaking against the norm or the expected. But yeah, again, you get all these celebrities that kind of come out and they're trying to use their platforms, and again, they're right, I guess. But at the end of the day, it's just, come on. there's more things to deal with music, with art, and again, I'm not convinced that these celebrities are actually making much of a difference to. They're kind of preaching to the choir. That actually, in some ways, touched on what I was going to say from my kind of cultural observation. Chris Pratt, Star-Lord himself.
The one and only.
He's kind of he's a cool guy. He's professes to be a Christian. He's talked about his church and stuff before on talk shows, and he was trending today and yesterday on Twitter. People are kind of hammering him because I guess there was a fundraiser for Biden, and a bunch of the Marvel actors and stuff were involved with it, and he wasn't involved in it. Again, he didn't come out and say anything about either party, but people are just kind of hammering him that they, can they even watch now? Because apparently he's making a political statement. It just struck me again. We're not going to get into the politics, but I think it says something about the industry, though, when the fact that someone isn't clearly
non-participation is
choosing,
participation.
Yeah, and that they aren't clearly on one side. For all we know, he might be. He just wasn't at the thing. That becomes newsworthy. I think.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to your, is it really brave to speak to this? It's, the fact that we can kind of almost on one hand name the people that might be of faith or conservatives or in that whole industry, I think says a lot about just the breakdown of that industry. So I think it's, and you kind of see too, because sometimes I think we can get hard on celebrities for not being as brave and outspoken, and we want them to go on Jimmy Kimmel and just, stand up and say, Jesus is Lord, and I'm going to vote for this, I'm going to do this. And I think you see it's easier kind of armchair bravery for us to wish they were doing that. But you can kind of see that it is hostile territory.
Well, luckily you don't have to even do that. You can just not do anything.
Yeah, and then you still get...
The mob will come for you.
It is difficult, I think, to be someone that has different values, that stands up for maybe more conservative or at least more Christian kind of values and beliefs, where you do stand out. I don't think he's in risk of his career or anything, but...
Maybe one last thing is I saw there was a trailer for the Hillbilly Elegy that is coming out. It was a book by J.D. Vance, kind of a memoir about his life growing up in Appalachia, and he went on to go to Harvard Law School, I think, and has been a successful lawyer. Well, it was made into a movie. I think Glenn Close is in it, and Amy Adams is in it.
On Netflix, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
I think it's on Netflix. Yeah. So I'm excited to see that. I read the book. It was a very good book, so I think that should be an interesting movie. So excited to see that.
Stay tuned for the Sam Camp review of that in the next week or two. I was actually going to ask you to review that. So there we go. Any final thought for us? Are we?
I think that's it. Hopefully you find laughter today, and to better your odds, follow the Babylon Bee.
And follow our channel too if you haven't done so, whether you're watching on YouTube or...
Hit all the buttons and the bells. And
like,
the
subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. But again, thanks guys for joining us. Hope you guys have a good week. Stay safe out there. Thanks for joining us and continue to collide with your world for Christ.